This is the 864 podcast from Rob of the Green, providing you with some insights, ideas, and actionable takeaways in just 864 seconds, or 1% of your day, with the explicit goal of making you get a little better, even if it's just 1%. Here's your host, Rob O'Donoghue. Let's do this.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the 864, and delighted to be releasing this one. I recorded this a few weeks back, and actually it is a first for this show or the other podcast. One of the goals I had for 2018 was to record some live podcasts, as in have a live audience there, as well as stream them live, but that's something else. But yes, this was one where I was lucky enough to get a small audience involved during the recording, probably more by chance than design, but I will definitely take it. The episode is with Stephen Ryan, who is a marketing expert. He's a storyteller, a lecturer, and just recently he launched his own storytelling agency, Narration.ie. And a few weeks back I went to one of his lectures where he was talking with a group of master's digital marketing students, and I was delighted to talk about the podcast and the journey I've been on for the last 2 years nearly. That was great fun, and I saw the opportunity then to tick off a goal for the year, and that was record live with a few folks in the room. So we did that. Stephen was well up for it, which was great, and as you'll hear, he certainly enjoys talking in front of an audience. It's a passion for him. It was a really interesting insight into his background, how he got to where he is now, and also we talked about future aspirations that he has, as well as sharing some 1% better tips in the areas of marketing and branding, which he, as I said, is the expert in. So there you go. That's the tee up. Hopefully you enjoy listening to the show. As always, please do check out some of the previous episodes on the website or on one of the podcast apps that you can find everywhere these days. Just search for the 864, and I'd love to hear what you make of the show. Have a great day and enjoy the chat with Stephen Ryan. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the 864 podcast, and this one is a kind of a first for the podcast in that we have a live studio audience. Hey, give a shout. I didn't. It's rent a crowd on a Saturday here.
Me on, thank you.
All new listeners to the podcast, so it's great. So I'm here with Stephen Ryan. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. Delighted
to have the next 14 minutes, 24 seconds with you.
Okay, that's a very short time for me. Anyone that knows me, I tend to talk a lot, so it's going to be a struggle for me.
Look, we have a timer going here, so once we get near the end, we'll put the hand up. But no, delighted to chat with you. I think I have some questions, but as always, these can go different directions. But it's been a big week for you.
It has, yeah. It has been, I suppose, a week that I teased out for a long time. Anyone that knows me, I would have left my position as head of marketing at Corkford FM at the end of June, and I gave it 3 months before I decided to officially announce what my brand new businesses were. I suppose first of all I want to set up what I call a storytelling agency. I suppose from an SEO point of view I kind of call it a marketing agency, but it's more about stories to me, and it's called Narration, and it's Narration.ie. And then the other thing was something that I've been kind of thinking about for a very long time, was this idea of 24 stories, and people were saying, what's that about? And the concept is that I get to know these guys, like people here in the room. I get to teach them, and I'm lucky to be in that position to teach them, and I just get to know them, and then they all leave. And I was kind of saying, is there anywhere where we can kind of get this kind of movement together and then bring other people in that don't want to come to college and don't want to do assignments and stuff, or maybe have done all that before, into the same environment? And I thought of a kind of a little tribe, a little club, and so that's what's going to happen. So basically, it's a series of events a year. You sign up as either a student, a graduate, an individual, or a business. And there's 24 in each category, because I want to keep it small, because I think smaller is better. And I want them to be able to network. I want them to be able to kind of mix and learn and develop and understand and create. And to do that, I think it's it's 4 events a month. You get to pick one out of the 4 events, and there'll be different people coming in talking about either a creative element. So I'm going to get people like voice coaches and actors and graphic designers and video people, podcasters as well, definitely. And then I'm going to have traditional, in terms of people from, I have somebody lined up from the cinema world and the print and radio and TV, a digital world, the likes of Google and LinkedIn. I've already spoke to them. And then insights as well. I'm really interested in the whole kind of consumer behaviour and data and research and stuff like that. So a different topic each time, and in a small, unique venue, which is the Blue Suite, which is upstairs in Warren Allen Coffee on Mailer Street in Cork. And it's intimate. It's really small. And I notice when the class is smaller and when groups are smaller, people are more likely to talk. They're not afraid. And that's the thing, because I've noticed when I have classes of 40, 50 or 60, you get silence. And silence isn't a great thing. And everyone's afraid. No one wants to put their hand up. And so that's what I want. And I think there's a lot of events out there, but there's no events focused on actually learning. And that's where I want to go with it.
Very cool.
So it's something different.
Sounds like a lot of planning has gone into it. So
yeah, a lot of thought process. I'm not the best at putting it all down on pieces of paper, so it's all in my mind and I need to tell people a bit better. But yeah, I have been planning, and it's come from actually meeting a lot of different people in different walks of life over the last kind of 2 years, and people coming to me asking me where could they learn more, etc. Especially in a place like Cork, where we're not as lucky as they are in Dublin, where the likes of Google put on breakfasts and the Marketing Institute put on weekly seminars and things like that. There's lots of stuff happening up there for anyone that's in the marketing game, PR, anything like that. There's lots of stuff. But down here, you're limited enough unless you actually do go to college. So there's not many opportunities.
Very good. So with Narration, it's helping brands tell their story, right?
Yeah.
But I think you, even this week in your launch, you have your own story to tell.
I do, yeah. And I suppose I was waiting to tell the story. So, I mean, it's one of those things. I think everyone has a story to tell, and not everyone's comfortable telling their story. And I suppose with the launch, I wanted to kind of take people on a bit of a journey, and I've come up with a concept because to help enable Ireland, I said I'm going to give some businesses free enabling sessions, because enabling them to kind of get the most out of their business and the most out of a fundraiser if they did it for Enable Ireland. But the reason why I wanted to do it for them was I suppose they helped me, even though it wasn't them as an organisation as such, but the facility that they're building in Cork, it would have been originally, and it's kind of a hard name to say, but I attended what they call the Cork Spastic Clinic when I was between the ages of 4 and 8, and I attended that because it was a different time in Ireland, and I had a physical disability. It's called osteogenesis imperfecta. Some people might know it as brittle bones, and I suppose it was hard for me to go to mainstream school. And because I was constantly breaking from the age of 6 months, I was in and out of cast on a regular basis, and I was brought there because they had the people there to look after me, and the people there to care for me, and the people there to ensure that I was, I suppose, protected, etc. And I went there for 4 years, and they gave me a lot of things, the tools, I suppose, to deal with life, and in particular confidence tools. Just because you have a disability doesn't mean that you can't achieve. And it's brilliant that they'd have the campaign like No Limits and stuff, because I think that's what they set in me from an early age. And they would have put me on stage, and actually that's where it started. I went to Fesh Matthew when I was about 7 or 8, and I was representing them. And, it was great that I got to go back to the Father Matthew Hall again, but this time to announce my own business. And from there, I suppose I went into mainstream school. I missed the whole of 4th class, for example, just because I couldn't walk. And because the school, my class was upstairs, I couldn't go in there. I ended up being on crutches for a further 2 years when I was going into secondary school. So they're all challenges, and I suppose I wanted to tell people that, look, you all have a story, and I suppose at the same time I could look down and say this is all negative, but at the same time it shaped who I am. Because as a result of that, I couldn't play a sport. I never did any sports or anything like that. And I realised when I was about 15 or 16 that I could sing. And because that wasn't physical contact, I ended up doing that instead. Did a bit of drama, etc., which led me to do a lot of stage stuff. which I honestly believe led me to doing a lot of guest talks when I got into marketing a bit more. And because I knew how to command the stage, etc., and that led me to being here as a lecturer. So everything works as a reason, one thing after the other. So that's why I'm all about creativity as well and storytelling.
Yeah, very cool. I definitely believe that challenges and suffering, quote unquote, is essential in one way to bring you on to the right path. So over the number of years you've been working in digital marketing for Photo and Red FM, that challenge I think a lot of people have is when is the right time to jump out?
To jump out? Yeah. A lot of people, I was at an event last night and somebody said, why did you leave Photo? I would have always thought that was a dream job. And I'll be truthful and say it was a dream job. But I went in there at 28 years of age, and I went in there and I stayed there for 7.5 years, and it was phenomenal. To especially things like, for example, I had 2 small kids at the same time. My wife was pregnant when I went in there, and they were reared with giraffes and lemurs and things like that. So it was like really, we didn't have pets at home. We said, why do you need pets? You have these amazing animals.
A wildlife park in your backyard.
And I had done so many things, and we had gone viral across the world. We ended up on Good Morning America. We ended up on all different magazines and websites across the UK and Europe and everything with different stories over the time. I had people staying on the park for a whole week when we did the wildlife with Red FM back in 2010, where I did a kind of a celebrity Big Brother type thing in the park. And it was a lot of fun, loads of fun. It was a blank canvas when I went in there. But I felt, because I was reaching, I got to kind of 35 and I was saying, okay, do I stick and stay here for life or do I leave? And I felt I didn't want to be known as a one-trick pony. And even though I had worked in previous positions before that, it was Photo that really kind of catapulted me into a different direction, and especially got synonymous with digital, in particular social media. So an opportunity came at Red FM, and I was always interested in radio. I think it's just a magic thing because it leaves, and just like podcasting, that idea of audio, kind of, you imagine things. You imagine people, what they look like, and the stories when they're telling them, etc. So I wanted to go into that because I felt that there was an opportunity to still have that traditional media, because people drive cars and they listen to radio, etc. So I went in there, and I found that actually even opened up more doors. For some reason, for some people, they nearly took the fact that they went into media nearly a bit more serious. Even though Photo was a very serious business in terms of the number of people, but in certain industries, I think it's a kid's game. Mm-hmm. Even though it was definitely not that way at all. So it opened more doors, but then I became more involved in CIT as well, and we created this Masters, which was the very first digital marketing masters in Munster. And then I started saying, okay, I'm nearly doing 2 full-time jobs here. And I'm getting lots of calls on the outside, would you help me with this, would you help me with that? Is there an opportunity to do this for myself? And I took the brave move earlier this year, and I just said, look, I planned it since January, and I made the decision. I told the guys in Red in May that I was going at the end of June, and just went with it. And I suppose I'm here a bit more now as well. So I'm lucky in that I'm not going fully out as an entrepreneur on my own, in terms of I have the backup plan of having CIT as well. But I'm enjoying it, and that's the thing. If I felt that there wasn't room for me out in the marketplace, I wouldn't have gone. But I think there is. There's plenty of room in Cork, because I think Cork is a growing city, and I think there's a lot of brands that still haven't really developed their whole marketing strategies and stuff yet.
So, a couple of maybe tips from the inside. If we have listeners here that want to maybe grow their own brand a little bit, or market themselves, what are the kind of key do's, or maybe even the key don'ts?
Well, timing is everything. I've always said timing is the big thing, in terms of, okay, you have to figure out what your message is, what the idea is, and then figure out when your audience are most likely to listen to it. For example, I was only talking to somebody this week about press, and if you want the press to cover a story, you should probably get your press release out probably on a Tuesday or Wednesday, because it's in the middle of the week. At the start of the week, they're kind of recapping last week and they're planning ahead, but they probably have a few things in their calendar. Thursday or Friday, it's too late. It's out of there. And then you might say, but why did I have a launch on a Thursday night? But I wasn't looking really at press. I was looking at the digital world. And you're more than likely to get a lot of people to gather on a Thursday evening than any other night of the week, because it's just before the weekend people start relaxing a bit more. And then if you can gather enough people in the same place at the same time and tell them to do something, you have a chance to go viral. And I was lucky enough on Thursday night to get narration trending online, because I asked a simple question. I said, everyone get out your phone right now and tweet narration. Just one thing, one simple thing. And that's all I asked them the whole evening to do. Yeah. And if that's all you ask people to do, one thing, then that will work. When you try to make things too complicated, it gets very confusing. The other thing I always say, you should have 4 big ideas in a year. And revolve around that if you're a business. So think about your 4 key times, and then kind of have some sort of creative idea that you haven't done before, and build on it and grow it and give it time, because it mightn't work straight away. It might take 2, 3, 4 weeks before it takes off, and once you have that, you'll be laughing. So they're the big tips for me. And creativity, never ever ever underestimate the power of creative concepts. Like, I think it's the one thing I love doing, is starting from zero and just putting an idea down and then changing it again. If I think it, like the idea this year, I mean, the Ed FM thing that we did for Ed Sheeran, that's a simple idea. That was just, but it was then how we kind of communicated it afterwards. You know, but it was all about the timing. We waited till the big day of the event itself, on the Friday morning, when everyone's going to be talking about Ed Sheeran. We waited till 8:15 when everyone's in their car, and we dropped the hour. We told everyone to look at their digital display on the radio, and everyone talks at the same time then. So they're the key things that you should be always thinking about. Come up with something very, very creative, and then think about what's the most effective time then to get that out there in terms of the message, etc.
2 very good tips there, Stephen. Yeah. We're coming up against it, and as I always like to do at the end, random question, number between 1 and 100.
I'll go with 24, so obviously, yeah.
I was going to ask you the significance, but there we go. What's the hardest decision you've ever had to make?
The hardest decision I ever had to make? Oh, that's a tricky one. I would say actually leaving Fota. Yeah. Because I loved the place so much, and having to make that decision, will I go or will I stay? On one side, it was the comfort. I was thinking of the children, my own kids. They were still young. They loved the place. I had the place to myself at the weekends if I was the duty manager. Imagine having a park all to yourself. It was just fantastic to have. And the people there, the staff, brilliant. And the customers, to see the delight on people's faces. So that was the tough decision. Having to sit down and kind of saying, okay, weigh it up. Do I leave all that behind, or do I focus on my career, or do I go with the easy option here and stay here and just, go through life, etc. So that was the toughest one, without a doubt. But I think it's all worked out in the end. Like, I'm really happy. I don't regret it at all. But at the time it was the toughest.
I'll do something different because we have an audience.
Okay.
I'm going to ask one of the audience members to come up, pick a number between 1 and 100, and then we can do the question there.
49.
49, I'll tell you now. When are you in a flow state, or when are you kind of in the zone?
Oh, I'm at my happiest when, for example, when I was on stage in the Fota Matthew Hall. When I'm on stage at an event, speaking at a conference, that's when I'm on the flow. I don't script anything beforehand. I always work off the slides. So I would base it off the slides. I will actually never really know what I'm going to say in advance. And that's the part I get excited. I get nervous and excited because the way I speak at those events, I see it exactly like when I sang on stage. And it's the same type of environment. And there's a huge correlation between the two. The only difference is this time I'm speaking off the top of my mind, whereas previously I'm singing a song that I was told to sing. So that's the only difference. But I love that environment. Give me that any day of the week, and I'd love to do it on a bigger scale at some point, and it's just really, really powerful. And there's a rush from it as well when you hear a reaction from the crowd, when people laugh, or or if you get a big clap or whatever, you kind of get a buzz. It's I for me, you see, I've never played sport, so I don't know what that's like. But to me, that must be the same type of thing, like when you score a goal or something. It must be the same type of feeling. So that's when I get the biggest rush. Yeah.
Very cool. Hopefully you got a bit of a rush doing this.
Definitely. Yeah.
We have an audience here as well. So, look, Stephen, that was brilliant. Thanks so much for doing that. Before we wrap up, maybe just give another call out of how people can get in touch.
Yeah. Two websites, Narration.ie or 24stories.ie. Or, of course, you'll find me everywhere on social. Stephen Ryan. You'll just see Stephen Ryan Cork, really. Yeah. You'll find me all over the place. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Thanks, folks, for listening. Thanks a million. Very good. Thanks a lot. Hey folks, so that was the 864, 864 seconds or thereabouts, and I hope you enjoyed it. Was there one key takeaway that stood out? Was it good? Was it bad? I would love to hear about it. So in the few seconds that remain, and to be fair, I've probably gone over, but I have a few asks. Please do subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes so that you never miss another show. You've heard that one before. I would love if you leave a rating and or a review. All of these help get the show further up the rankings, which means more people see the podcast and then hopefully hear it. It means a lot to me. Follow me on Rob of the Green or on Spreaker.com/Rob of the Green. That's where all the podcasts are hosted, but on the Rob of the Green site you can get to everything. The 1% Better podcast, this one, the 1 minute Monday videos, and you can also connect in with me through the website. There's a feedback page, or on any of the socials. Just look for @Rob of the Green or Rob of the Green. I think you get the picture. Finally, give yourselves a round of applause because you've all been so lovely, and thanks for listening. Have a great day and good luck.